Hi, guys. Welcome to the Supernatural Burge Life channel. I am Danita Elmore Burge, and today I will tell you how I manifested my husband within 1 month and God released our supernatural marriage within less than 90 days. Isn't that incredible and yet crazy? But, anyways, so last year, January the 15th of 2020, I was single as a dollar bill, y'all. But on that particular day, a friend of mine that I had known for 2 years, um, he's a handsome guy. He was a businessman, very smart, good guy. He stopped by my house because he would pop in from time to time when he felt like it. We would sit, we would talk, we would spend time together. And so he and I had a very strong connection. I knew that he liked me, I knew that I liked him, but there was just a holdup. I knew that he had some things that he was working on. And so I was just sitting around waiting for him to get himself together. And that particular day, I asked him a question and he didn't give me a very good answer. And so I was like, okay, cool. And he was like, I'll be back. And I was like, okay. And I left it at that. So when later on that day, I got a phone call from one of my sisters, and she was like, hey, there's going to be a worship service at this church in Rocky Mount. Why don't you come out? So I went to the worship service, and one of the pastors that, I love dearly, she's an amazing woman of God, she preached. And so after she got done preaching, I was driving back to my house from Rocky Mount to Salem, and it was like a 35-minute drive. And as I was driving, I was still in the spirit. I was praying and just spending time with God. I had not come down up off that high from that service. And so in that moment, I prayed to God and I said, God, if you see fit to send somebody else into my life, I give you permission to do it. God, do not let this man call me. Do not let him pop by my house like he normally does. Do not let him text me. God, if there's somebody else that I can still accomplish your mission with, then God, I am open to whomever you may send that is ready, because I will not wait on this guy any longer. I cannot do it. I don't want to do it. And not only that, I also prayed about some other things about my new home and everything. So once I got back to the house, I had calmed down and stuff, and I went on about my days. And like I said, I was single as a dollar bill. I was not thinking about no man. I had made it up in my mind that I was going to focus on God. I was going to grow my business. I have a non emergency medical transportation company. And I was just going to work on growing my paper and doing other things that God had called me to do. I know He said, for us to have multiple streams. So I was working on some other things as well. So on February the 21st, I had to interview a guy, a new driver, to start. But when I went out there to my mom's truck, it would not turn. I couldn't get it to work. And I was devastated because I had this interview to do, but thank God I have a transportation company. So I just hopped in one of my vans and I went to go meet my new hire. And so one of my drivers, she had a mechanic that she used that was very, very good. And I had reached out to him months prior, but he never did return my phone call. So on this particular day, she told me about him again. And so I reached out, and he let me know that he was on his way from Chicago and that he would stop by my house as soon as he got in and check out the truck, because I could have had it towed to a regular shop, but I had already been dealing with a whole bunch of people who did not know how to fix it, and I was not wasting any more money. A lot of times when you got like a Mercedes or a BMW, Jaguar, whatever, you take them to the shop, they take your money and they don't fix your vehicles, or either you take it to the shop and they don't want to touch it because they don't know how to fix it. So this guy, I texted him and I told him what it was that was going on with the vehicle. And, he was like, I'll be there. So I got back home from the interview, and a little while later, he texted me to tell me that he was in my backyard. So I go outside and I meet Nick, and that was the mechanic. But he doesn't come by himself. he had a friend with him, and I think his son may have been with him as well. So I met him, and I'm sitting out there and I'm talking to him. We're getting to know each other. It seems like we've known each other all of our lives. And so this friend of his was, in the car. He was looking at the vehicle, just, I don't know, trying to figure out what was going on with it. They already knew what was going on, but he was thoroughly checking out the car. So I'm talking to Nick, and we're just in deep conversation about some of everything. And lo and behold, he introduces his friend, and his friend's name is Lee. And so, I look at the guy, and, they began to talk about relationships and stuff. And Lee had, just briefly mentioned that he was getting out of a relationship that he had been in for about 4 years or so, 4 or 5 years, I don't know. He had just moved to Roanoke from North Carolina. Actually, he was in transition. Lee had been in a terrible car accident December of 2019. So 2 months prior to him meeting me, he almost died. Y'all, when I tell you that the car, it looked like nobody could have survived that wreck, it was nothing but the hand of God that kept that man alive in that accident. I tell you, he should have been dead and gone. But I thank God that he was not dead and gone, because God clearly had a plan for me to meet him, because he wanted us to get married. So when Lee showed up, like I said, he was so busy focusing on fixing the cars. Mind you, he was in pain. He was flopping around in my backyard because he had a broken back. He had an infection. He had a lot going on, but he still smiled, and there was something sweet about his spirit. So, they're working on the car. And, that night when I went to bed, God had instructed me to pray for him. At this moment, I am not thinking nothing about no man. I'm not thinking nothing about him being my husband. I'm not even looking at him. I'm definitely not checking for this man, because at this point, from what I can see, he's this guy that literally he just needs to get himself together. There's nothing he can offer me at this point. And so they had to come back the next day, and they came back quite a few times after that, because I have several vehicles, and now I've got these amazing mechanics. When I tell you, these guys are the top notch mechanics. They are literally some of the best in the world. um I was so blessed. I said, what's the likelihood that God would allow my husband to show up in my backyard? He be a master technician, certified in, I think, 8 areas or something. I can't remember. But he was able to fix my mom's Mercedes. Not only did he fix that, but he fixed my Jaguar and quite a few vans that I had some stuff wrong with and stuff. And so, they kept coming over week after week, and he would barely say anything. I would, we would talk, have very little conversation, but I spent a lot of time talking to Nick. But Nick is married, and he's got a whole family, so there is nothing that's going to take off over there. But in the meantime, I'm praying. God still has me in a place of praying for Lee. And, I didn't even realize that this guy had been checking me out. So, like 2 weeks after February the 21st, it was like on a Thursday. He was getting ready to leave. And so before he left, he looked at me and he says, um, maybe one day you might want to have supper with this ugly mug. And I was so caught off guard, because, guys, who says have supper? I was knocked off my feet. I'm like, that's an old term. I couldn't believe it. But, instead of me saying no, I said, well, maybe, if you text me or something like that, I might think about it. So he did. He did text me. And the next week, we talked through text message. Like the whole next week, he would message me every day when he got up, before he went to sleep. We became really good friends. We were really cool. And so I realized that this man is really, really a good guy, and he's sweet. Now, mind you, he's nothing like what I'm used to. I'm used to those pretty boys that smell good, that's got it all together, or so I thought, or whatnot. Not saying that Lee wasn't that, but he was in a really, really terrible place at that time. He was just focused on getting his life together. He had just gotten out of a terrible relationship, had moved from North Carolina, really didn't have a home at that point. He was staying with Nick. He didn't have a car because he had just wrecked it. He was in between jobs and stuff because when his accident happened, he had to go out on leave. But let me tell you how God works. So within days of him getting to Roanoke, he was able to go back to the shop that he worked at and take over the entire shop again. That's how good he is. This man was high in demand. So I'm watching this and I'm just looking and I'm praying and I'm getting to know him, and he literally, is pulling on my heartstrings. I'm like, he's a great friend, he's a good guy. you know there's no harm in me getting to know him. So um he's telling me that he wants to grow closer to God. And I'm that chick. I'm praying, I'm in the word of God. I'm at church and stuff like that. I'm going. It's all about God for me. People have addictions, they smoke, they drink, they do whatever they do. Well, mine is I have a strong relationship with God, so I'm clearly addicted to God, and that is not a bad thing. And so he wanted to go to church, and I told him, I said, fine. I said, if you want to go to church, I will pick you up. I will take you with me to church and, we'll go. So I couldn't believe it because out of all of the years that I have dated guys and stuff, I had a hard time getting my ex boyfriends to go to church with me. That was one of the things that was not big on their mind. I did have a couple to go, but it was like pulling teeth. They weren't really into it. But this guy, he wanted to get to church because he knew that God had a calling on his life. He knew that God was calling him to more. So, we talked about it, and, I thought he was playing because most of the time, if a guy tells you he's going to church, he's telling a whole lie. He going to come up with an excuse as to why. This guy right here, he was adamant about getting to church. And the thing about it was he barely had any clothes. I mean, he was so displaced in such a terrible spot, but he didn't make an excuse. I knew that, I might not go to church that particular Sunday, but he texted me and he was like, hey, are we still going to church? And you know what? Just because he, texted me and made that effort, I was like, okay, we're gonna go. So I got myself up and, got dressed, and I picked him up, and he had on his clothes, and he wasn't dressed worth anything, but he didn't make an excuse. He just did not have the clothes with him to wear. But I told him, I said, it doesn't matter what you look like. It just matters that your heart is right and that you are running after God. I said, that's what's important. So we went to church, and during the church service or whatnot, I kind of glanced over at him, and he had a tear come down his eye. And I almost grabbed his hand because I wanted to comfort him and let him know that everything was okay. But, me being me, I was like, nope, not doing it, not gonna do it. So they had us stand up during the service. And so when we stood up, he grabbed my hand, and my heart almost jumped out my chest because I'm like, oh my God, this guy just grabbed my hand. And I literally was about to grab his, but he grabbed mine first. And so I pulled my hand away because I was like, oh no. So then after church, we went to Ruby Tuesdays. I took him out for lunch, and we sat there and we talked, and I got to know him a little bit more. And so I took him back to Nick's house and went home, and we continued to text and talk and stuff like that. He was very consistent with his messaging. He was very consistent with everything he said. He was very truthful. He was open. He literally was a good guy. And so, I began praying about him because I found myself starting to like him. And so, as I was praying, God let me know, do not judge the book by its cover. Just because he does not look like what you thought, just because he's not what you expected, he could be just what you've been praying for. And God also let me know, watch me clean him up and heal him right before your eyes. So when God let me know that, I felt my heart beginning to soften more towards him, because by this time, we're about 3 weeks into knowing each other. And Lee, he's very open. He's letting me know that he loves me. And he even let me know that while we were at church that Sunday, that God had told him that everything that he needed was right there beside him. And so in that moment, he knew that I was going to be his wife. And so he started to tell me. And I'm over there thinking, I don't know about this, not sure. I wrote my little list. It was about 40 some things on my list. And, he's supposed to be tall and light skinned, with good hair and all these different things. And Lee is tall, he's white, and he does not have good hair. He has white hair. Anyways, it's not even about that. But God allowed me to see, how beautiful he was. I don't care whether he didn't have, a whole lot of material things in that moment. His heart was so amazing. I could not help but to love this man. And so God had let me see, as he kept on saying I was going to be his wife, eventually it just clicked within days. I knew, I probably knew it from day one, but I didn't recognize it. God had to open my spiritual eyes to recognize my husband, because had I not had that relationship with God and been open to the will of God, then I would have missed him, because he didn't look like what I had. It seemed like he was in the worst place in his life. He had nothing to offer me, which is what he said. He's like, I'm in a worse place in my life, but what have I got to lose? And that was the thing that really intrigued me the most, was that this man had the balls to step to me and actually pursue me. Whereas, guys that got it all together, they come up with all the excuses. It was such a hassle with other people, but everything flowed so easily with him. I could talk to him. He cared about me like nobody else had cared about me before. There was such a gentle love about this man. And, I couldn't deny it. I would have been a fool to have let this man pass me by, because, you know, I saw him making the efforts to be that man that I would need. He didn't do anything extravagant, but everything that he did was just right. It was the small things that matter. It was the fact that he cared. He knew how to love me the right way. And so that's how we ended up meeting. And literally, um, nobody really knew about our relationship. We eventually told my parents about us getting married, I think about April. It was around Easter of last year. And we had planned to have a wedding in August, but COVID hit, y'all. So COVID threw everything all off whack. And I knew that God had called me to move to the Raleigh area. And so I knew I would be leaving. So one of the things that I did was I prayed. I said, God, if this is my husband, give me a sign. So I had already been approved for my house and everything. And I had put his name on the application, because I knew that eventually, once we got married, he would be moving down to Raleigh with me. And so the landlords called me back, and they were like, we found something on his background. And I was like, oh boy, I don't know if this is going to work. God, if this isn't the man for me, then don't let them approve him to move into this house with me. And so they called me back within an hour. They told me, Miss Elmore, he's been approved. All is well. We put his name right there beside your name. I was like, okay, God, you made it very clear that this is supposed to be my husband. And so my mom and my dad, they were all for us getting married. They really didn't have time to get to know him like that. But when we went and he asked them for my hand in marriage, they gave us their blessing. Um, and so we got the house, and we were slated to move into it on May the 15th. And so we would get the keys to it that day. And so, we had prayed about it, and God let us know that May the 16th would be the day for us to get married. So, long story short, on May the 16th, I married my best friend. I married my husband. I received my supernatural marriage. Everything worked out. It was so easy. I didn't have to do anything. And I do honestly believe that God allowed this marriage to happen because He has an awesome plan for He and I. Um, he orchestrated the whole thing. I said that prayer on January the 15th. My heart was open. I was not in a place of wanting a marriage. I didn't even care at that point. If God never gave me my marriage, I would have been satisfied. I was like Ruth. I was out there working, doing God's will for my life. And God saw fit to release my husband. Just like he said, I stood on the word of God because God had let me know intimate details about, my husband, that I would be getting married, that it would be in 2020, but I thought it would be towards the end of the year. And God also told me that I had options. But see, I gave up that first option. I didn't want to wait because I didn't want to go through it anymore. When you're waiting on someone and, it kind of leaves you in a place that doesn't feel good. And so I gave that up. I surrendered over to what it was that God wanted me to do. I focused on Him, and God allowed my husband to come in even when he felt like he wasn't ready. Guys, I was not his type either. He had never dated a black girl. So imagine the shock to both of us when we connected, but color doesn't even matter. When God does something, it doesn't make any sense. All you have to know is that it's right. There will be a peace in your spirit that will give you confirmation that it's right. And when God does it, he makes it so easy. When I tell you that this past year of marriage has been nothing short of amazing, it has been nothing short of amazing. I have watched God bless my husband in so many ways. One of my favorite scriptures used to be, he who findeth a wife findeth a good thing and obtaineth favor from the Lord. So that's Proverbs 18 and 22. When Lee and I got married, I mean, the doors just opened up for him. He he's received so many offers for jobs and things. I mean, he had people want him all over the place. I watched him, just his finances increase, his health has gotten better. Even though he still has some things that he's dealing with, I watched God heal him and do different things in his body. I watched him grow as a man. I watched him, just become somebody that I absolutely adore and that I'm absolutely in love with. Our marriage is very, very special and sacred. And, I thank God for it because only God could have orchestrated my supernatural marriage. I could have never thought that it would have happened like that. I would have never thought that it would have been him because I didn't even know him. I didn't know he existed. And had I met him previously, honey, I would have dismissed him just like he probably would have dismissed me. Because in his mind, he didn't think that he could pull a girl like me. And in my mind, he just wasn't what I was looking for. But in reality, he's everything that I was looking for. I love looking at his brown eyes and stuff. I love how, he supports everything it is that God has me doing or whatnot. I have the most supportive and amazing husband who is a provider. Even though when I met him, his life was in shambles, God had orchestrated that accident so that he can be at the right place at the right time to meet me. He showed up at my backyard, y'all. I didn't have to go anywhere. God sent the blessing to me. It chased after me. I didn't go chasing after him. I was not in a place where I was longing for a husband. I didn't constantly think about it. I was minding my own business, being about the things of God. I didn't try to pursue him. I did nothing but just be who I was. And he recognized the God in me. He recognized the type of woman that I was. And he was not going to miss his opportunity to let me go. He was not going to miss it. So, guys, I encourage you, when God has something for you, make sure that your spiritual eyes are open because you may miss out on your blessings. God is not going to force you to take your blessings. He's not going to hold your blessings forever. But if you don't want it, trust and believe he will have somebody else in line to give it to. God is a gentle God. He's a good God. He will give you your promises. He'll give you the desires of your heart, but you have to seek him first. Keep your mind stayed on him. Focus on him. If you are seeking to get married, make sure that you do the work because God is not going to release your husband or your wife to you if you have not healed yourself from the inside out. Because the thing is that if you are not completely healed and whole, then you will do nothing but get married and you'll have so many issues. You will drive your spouse away, and it just won't be good. But I can tell you because, from the time he had his accident to the time he met me, he had worked on himself. I mean, Lee had been through a lot of things, but God had been dealing with his heart during that time. But God had also been dealing with my heart because I had been praying for my husband before I even met him, because I already knew that he was coming and I could feel him. I'll have to tell you supernatural stories that I've had, just how God took me on supernatural dates and things. And so I wanted to encourage you guys that God is releasing supernatural marriages to those that will completely surrender to Him. Surrender your will over to Him, and He will hook you up. Ask me how I know. I'm living it right now. I'm not saying that our life is perfect, but when I tell you that our marriage is very sturdy, stable, blissful, and good and real, it's no lie. God is releasing supernatural marriages because He's bringing back marriages. He's restoring the state of marriages. Even if you're already married, God can restore that marriage and make it like it's brand new. If you commit to doing His will, if you commit to allowing your marriage to be, used for His glory. God is not bringing couples together because, ooh, I want to be, hooked up with somebody. I want to have sex and all that stuff like that. That was the last thing on me and Lee's mind. We did not get into our marriage based off of a physical relationship. He was trying to heal, guys. And I was over there, so caught up in God. I'm like, okay, God gonna whip me. So I'm keeping my legs closed. I'm focusing on what God has me to do. So, I encourage you, seek God, get your healing, be open to what God will release to you, because it probably won't look like what you think. It probably won't come in the way that you thought it would. But when it comes in, I promise you, it will be magical. It will be right. And that person will be everything it is that you ever wanted, and people wonder, well, how can I let God hook me up with somebody? He hasn't done it before. Will I be attracted to my spouse? I am highly attracted to my husband. I love him and everything about him. No, he may not be the skinniest guy in the world. He's not fat either or whatnot. There are things that my body's not perfect. I'm not perfect. So, you don't look at those small things like that. You focus on the things that really matter. You focus on the heart. You focus on, where God wants to take you all for His glory. You focus on joining together with your spouse to be able to carry out the assignment that God has on your life. That's what marriage is all about. Not because, ooh, I'm so in love, I can't live without this person. If that's all you have on your mind, then you've got the wrong thing going. You've got to love yourself. And in that way, God will teach you how to love your spouse, and your marriage will be good. Anyways, I will be coming back to you soon with more videos to be able to explain things that's happened within our marriage, within our lives and stuff, to explain supernatural occurrences and things. So if you like this video, subscribe to our channel, like it, because there is more to come. You don't want to miss out on what else will be released, because you will get an inside scoop on what is happening and what has happened. And we will teach you how to prepare for your supernatural marriage. We will even teach you how to restore your marriage that you currently have. And we'll just be of service to you as God leads us. Anyways, have a great day. Bye.